It was a warm afternoon in August 1901 when two English women, Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, walked through the gardens of the Palace of Versailles. Both were respectable scholars, headmistresses at Oxford, and neither was given to fantasy. They had traveled to France on holiday, eager to explore the grandeur of the former royal estate. But what began as a leisurely stroll would become one of the most enduring mysteries in history, a story that would challenge the very boundaries of time itself. They entered the Petit Trianon, the private retreat once belonging to Queen Marie Antoinette. The sun was high, but as they walked, the air seemed to grow heavy, still, almost electric. The sounds of the present, the chatter of tourists, the hum of insects, faded away. Then, they noticed the atmosphere had changed. The lights seemed oddly dim, as if the world had turned into an old painting. They passed men wearing long green coats, tricorn hats, and knee breeches, strange attire even for early 1900s France. The men did not speak. Their movements felt slow and deliberate, like figures in a dream. As the women continued, they saw a small cottage that appeared unusually vivid, almost too real. A woman stood by the doorway, her face pale, her expression frozen in sorrow. Moberly later wrote that it felt like a living tableau. Soon, they reached the terrace of the Petit Trianon itself, where Anne Moberly saw a woman sketching. She wore a light summer dress and a wide-brimmed hat. Her face, Moberly later said, was repellent, unnatural, yet strangely familiar. Only later did she realize who it resembled: portraits of Marie Antoinette painted just before the French Revolution. Moments later, they encountered a young man in a modern uniform who gestured them toward the main path. As they turned, the strange haze lifted. The sounds of the 20th century returned. Laughter, footsteps, the rustle of leaves. Everything looked normal again. Confused and shaken, the two women said nothing until they were back in Paris. Only weeks later did they compare notes and realize they had seen the same things, the same faces, the same eerie light, the same feeling of having stepped into another time. In 1911, they published their account under pseudonyms as An Adventure. The book caused an uproar. Critics dismissed it as imagination, hysteria, or a misremembered pageant. But their descriptions matched maps and details of the gardens as they existed in 1789, paths and buildings that no longer existed in 1901. Some historians were stunned. How could they have known? Decades later, physicists studying space-time anomalies pointed out an uncanny possibility, a time slip, where localized distortions of electromagnetic fields might cause overlapping moments in time to coexist. To the observer, it would seem as though they had physically crossed into the past. While science offered no proof, the Moberly-Jourdain experience remains one of the most detailed and credible accounts of a spontaneous time displacement ever recorded. But this wasn't an isolated event. Around the world, reports of time slips have emerged, ordinary people suddenly finding themselves in the wrong century. One of the most chilling came from England again, this time in the 1990s. A man named Frank and his wife were driving through Liverpool when they turned down a side street toward Bold Street, a bustling area lined with modern shops. But as they parked, Frank noticed something odd. The cars were gone. The buildings looked older. The air felt different, heavier. He stepped out and realized the shop signs had changed, modern names replaced by ones he recognized from childhood stories. One store displayed dresses from the 1940s. The women walking past wore hats and long skirts. A bus rumbled by, but it wasn't one of the new double-deckers. It was cream-colored, with an old logo that hadn't existed in decades. Panic rising, Frank tried to call out to his wife, but she was gone. Then, just as suddenly, he heard a loud honk behind him. A modern car swerved past, and the world snapped back to normal. The air cleared. The modern shops returned. His wife stood on the pavement, confused. She claimed he had vanished for just a few seconds. Later, when Frank tried to describe what he had seen, he realized he had walked into a moment from 1951, down to the store names verified by historical records. Even more disturbing, he wasn't alone. Dozens of people have since reported similar slips around Bold Street, each describing the same strange quiet, the same shifting color, and the same sudden return. Another incident occurred in 1935 with Sir Victor Goddard, a British Royal Air Force officer. While flying from Edinburgh to Andover, Scotland, he passed over an abandoned airfield in Drim, Scotland, broken, overgrown, left to decay. Moments later, he was caught in a violent storm, clouds twisting like a vortex. Struggling to control his plane, he broke through the clouds, and suddenly the airfield below looked new again. The hangars were freshly painted. Mechanics in blue overalls worked on yellow planes, a color not yet used by the RAF. Shaken, Goddard flew home and told no one. 4 years later, in 1939, he returned to the same airfield and was stunned to find it exactly as he had seen it during his flight. The RAF had reopened it, the hangars freshly restored, the planes painted yellow, and the mechanics now wore blue. Had he seen a glimpse of the future? These time slips, scattered across continents and decades, share peculiar similarities. A sudden change in atmosphere, a silence as though the world holds its breath, distorted light, the sense that time itself has paused and turned translucent. Some researchers propose that powerful geomagnetic fields or seismic stress in the Earth's crust might bend electromagnetic energy, producing temporary distortions in space-time, a kind of natural wormhole. Others see it as a phenomenon linked to human consciousness, where reality briefly aligns with another moment in history through some unknown resonance of thought and environment. In the 1970s, Dr. J.A. Healy, a physicist studying temporal perception, noted that many time-slip events occur in locations heavy with emotion: battlefields, ancient cities, royal estates. Could intense human history leave behind an energetic imprint, like grooves in space-time? If consciousness interacts with quantum fields, perhaps under rare conditions, those grooves can be replayed, not as ghosts, but as fragments of actual time. It is as though the past is not gone, merely hidden, waiting for the right conditions to bleed through. Some dismiss these cases as illusions, false memories, or tricks of light. But what makes them compelling is their consistency across witnesses who never met each other. 2 Oxford professors in 1901, a pilot in 1935, a driver in 1990, all describing the same eerie silence, the same dislocation, the same feeling of stepping between worlds. What if time is not a straight line, but a vast ocean with currents and whirlpools where moments can collide? And what if, every now and then, someone drifts into one of those eddies and glimpses a time not their own? If that is true, then perhaps Versailles, Bold Street, and the skies above Scotland are not haunted by spirits, but by time itself, folding, pulsing, remembering. And if these slips happen by accident, who's to say they cannot be triggered by design? Because while the world chases ghosts and legends, somewhere deep in classified research labs, scientists still whisper about temporal vortexes. And the next time it happens, it might not be an accident at all.